Meeting to order. Supervisor LaFountain will be here shortly. He asked me to just start things this evening. I'd like to have the record reflect that 4 of the members of the board are here, and Tony will be here in a moment. The first thing, put it in my bag. Actually, let's entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Bring it up again.
Just digging it out of my bag. I was buying myself 30 seconds. Okay. So I did speak with some of the residents in the hallway. Just a quick note. This afternoon, if you're here for the item on the agenda for the dog hotel, we did receive an email this afternoon, late this afternoon, from the developer that requested that we table this until June 8th. And I just want to read into the record the email we received. I received a call from Jerry Goldman, attorney for the Pet Hotel proposal this afternoon, requesting that this matter be continued tabled on our agenda until June 8th. Therefore, the town board will not be discussing this again until June 8th. Please share this with your homeowners association distribution list. I will also make an announcement at the start of the meeting. So this was shared with the Allens Creek Homeowners Association this afternoon once we received the email, and I just wanted to read it into the record. So if you are here for the dog hotel discussion, that is not on the agenda tonight. Okay. So now we have the approval of the minutes from May 11th.
I'll move to approve the minutes of May 11th.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the minutes? All right, well then they stand as written. Thank you, Lisa. Monthly reports, nothing to report. No public hearings this evening. And we have several guests. Our first guest is Jennifer. Discussion of improvements to 2084 5 Mile Line Road. All right, well thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.
All right. Jim, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
Jennifer's
here tonight for 2 reasons. The first reason is she would like to do an event on her property on the 4th of July. She's done it for the last several years. The one problem she's running into internally, it's not an issue in terms of what she wants to do, but the problem is that she has asked for permits throughout the beginning of the year to now, and she's used up the 3 permits that she's entitled to by allowing us to approve them internally. Because it's beyond the scope of what we're allowed to do, we're asking you to review her proposal, and then if you see it's appropriate, allow it to go through. The second thing she's requesting is, and I think she did request initially when she first came to the board, she would like to do some additional outdoor dining. She's doing outdoor dining right now on her porch area, which she's been doing since day 1. She did look at the possibility at one point in time of doing a patio area in the front of the property. The owner of the property has indicated that he's not really supportive of paving over the grassed area on the property, but he would permit her to allow tables and chairs in the grassed area during the summer months. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Well, exactly exactly what Jim just said. The parade comes through, right? It starts a block from our place, and it's not a big money-making day for us, but it is a very patriotic day for us, and we are very patriotic at our place. The banners will prove that, and our customers love the banners that we have. Honestly, I didn't realize that having a banner up that said Happy Easter, New Beginnings had anything to do with me taking away from being able to have my day on the lawn for celebrating our Independence Day. I guess I just would like approval to do what I've done every year, which I don't serve alcohol on my front lawn. My customers know that. They're already wanting to know about reservations for their table for the parade. We just basically serve breakfast and garbage plates out there. So that's basically that. Our banners situation, I would like to discuss a little further. I do have a banner that says God Bless America that I feel is...
Yeah, hold on one moment. I think. Zach, could you just into the hallway, please? Thank you. All right, Jen.
Thank you. I have read up on the Penfield town codes, and I do realize there is an exemption for my God Bless America banner that actually I could have up year-round if I wanted, because my ideological religious belief...
No, not for that. Not for commercial use.
Okay.
That deals with residential. If you put an American flag up or a flag of any recognized nation in the world, you can do that.
Okay, so just so I understand,
Yeah.
me to put up a banner that says God Bless America on my building for 2 months, you're not gonna allow me to do that?
No.
Okay, that's all I need to hear?
Okay.
And that's
Now,
documented on
but that
camera,
doesn't-
correct?
That doesn't mean.
Because I have the code and everything that says that I'm exempt from that.
You are entitled to have a banner if they approve the proposal for the 4th of July. You were entitled to have a banner in conjunction with that event. But to have banners up day after day in the town of Penfield for commercial property, because in essence, you're really using that as a method of trying to draw people to your property. And you are. You know
Yes,
you are.
yes and no.
Well, you are. And
For,
that's fine, but the point is,
may I respond to that, though?
sure.
Okay. For me, honestly, and people that know me, my customers that are there every day, day in and day out, know how I was raised. They've gotten to know me and my family.
Yep.
They know we're very, very much patriotic people. That's why they come here, because they like my banners, and they like what we put up that says God Bless America. I should be able to do that every day of the
But
year if I want to.
everybody in Penfield who has a business.
If they want to put God Bless America up, I would never, ever question that.
You wouldn't, but the problem is they won't do that. They'll do other things besides that banner. And if the board allows one banner, they've got to allow all of them. We can't have the whole town covered in banners. It's 365 days a
Okay.
year. It's like blinking lights
Do you-
in windows.
do you-
I'll take
have-
that up on a separate then issue, because now I have it documented that you're telling me
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, there's no.
And that's a pretty big deal that you're saying that I can't say
It's not a
God
big
Bless
deal.
America on my banner.
No, I'm not saying that. You have other opportunities on your property to do that in your window.
That's what I was just
You
missing.
can, there are other opportunities.
Okay.
But to
Inside.
put
Alright.
banners up, banners or signs, and you're entitled to have a certain amount of signage in the town as
So-
as a commercial operator.
Right.
Do you have,
Like Mark's Pizzeria has 3.
He was approved, and you and I talked about that on
This
the
one
phone.
has 2. Cha-Cha's has 3.
And my comment to you is,
I understand.
no, you're not
They all
listening to
have
me.
2 and 3.
Jennifer,
Hold
Jennifer.
on one moment.
I got you.
let's finish the discussion.
The
You and I did
conversation.
talk
Yep.
about the fact that everybody who's got more than one sign
Has been approved.
has
Can
been
we have one
approved by this
person talking at a
board.
time? It's very difficult to,
me
let you
finish.
finish,
Yeah.
and then you can speak, okay? And then back again.
You and I have talked on the phone a couple of times now about the fact
Absolutely.
that everybody who has more than one sign has come to this board for an approval and received it, for one reason or another. They all have to justify why they need it, but they have. You also have that right to come to this board and ask for that as well.
Okay.
Banners are not, we do not approve banners per se as signage. Banners are something you put up on a temporary basis
Right.
to identify a certain event for a certain period of time.
Okay.
If you want a second sign, you're more than welcome to come to this board through a permit process to ask for it and justify why you need it. And if they determine that it's necessary for you to have it, they will grant it as they have other people as
Okay.
well.
Even though they said no already,
Yes.
and now
Yes.
everybody
Exact-
else gets it,
because
so
if you
now I should go
remember-
back and have to ask again.
You have every right to ask again if you want to.
Okay.
And you and I have talked about that. Okay? So if you want to come back and ask
So-
for an additional sign,
I
you're more than
understand.
welcome
For
to do
tonight's
it.
discussion, we're
Understand.
looking at just the opportunity to have what,
An event, right?
an event, a sort of a fourth event in a year.
Well,
Just
what I
be-
was actually going to ask for
Okay.
is Memorial Day is on Monday,
Right,
and I wanted to put my God Bless America banner on my building from Memorial Day through the 4th of July.
okay.
Because I am proud as, God needs to bless us nowadays, what we're going on in our country, and that is what my customers know me for.
But also understand.
That's why I'm asking.
Also understand, you've had Happy Easter, you've had Happy New Year's, you've had all sorts of other banners. Those banners have been used as a method to draw people to the building.
Not
to
really,
identify
not in
them.
my mind, but okay.
But under our code, they are.
Okay.
And that's
Have
what you
they-
have to live by, is the code.
May I ask a question?
Well, hold on, just out of curiosity, from a permitting standpoint, were those banners, did they go through the formal process?
did,
with
yes.
the-
She's
with the
been
permit?
compliant. She's
Okay,
been
I just
compliant
want to
in
make
every
sure,
respect.
so
I'm not a
so
rule
we have...
breaker.
No, she's
No,
been
I
very
understand it, but I
compliant.
just want to make sure that we have now 3
Yes.
instances where there have been banners or special
Correct.
event
And that's the
banners.
problem. She's
Okay.
been compliant, she's
So,
used up her 3 times.
I just, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point
I
here, but I
understand.
just want to say, I think what we're looking at is more of the process, which is there are 3 instances where you're allowed to have the special event banners, and we're looking for the potential of a 4th. So I think that's the discussion on the table here. I don't think it's necessarily what the banner says. Now, as far as duration, Jim, can you just refresh?
Well, the duration,
what's-
you're
how long
entitled,
is-
by code, you're entitled to have an event or banners associated with an event or banners by themselves for a period of 3 times per year, 1 time would equal 1 week. So in essence, you're up to 3 weeks a year.
Okay.
She's utilized those. As I said, internally, we have the ability to issue those permits, which we do, and she comes in and gets her permits for them every time. The problem that we have is we don't have by code the ability to issue her a 4th or a 5th or a 6th or a 7th.
Right.
You do have that ability, and that's why we sent her to you.
Right. And 2 months is far beyond what is the standard code.
Well, it's 3 weeks is the standard.
Right.
You do have the ability to make a determination what you think is appropriate.
Even,
If you thought 2 months was appropriate, you could do that. We can't do it internally, though. But again, recognizing,
Wow, such a person.
I was just gonna say, recognizing if Jennifer gets 2 months,
Right.
Wegmans gets 2 months, everybody
Oh,
else in the world gets
right.
2 months.
well, everybody already has way more advertising than Jennifer does. Like Mark's has 3 signs.
But you're entitled to come in and apply.
But I
for
already
a second
did, and you
time.
said no.
That was 3 years ago.
No, we just celebrated 3 years, so
That was 3 years ago. We've talked about that.
And they-
And I've told you, you have every right to come back to this
Okay.
board at your convenience and apply for a second sign and demonstrate to them why it's necessary, which you may very well be able to do. But the use of banners on a continuous basis is not a method of trying to utilize signage for what you're trying to do. You need a second sign if that's the case.
So you guys, I came in front of you, you said no. Other people came in front of you and said yes. And now I have to come back and ask again because you said yes. I don't understand
I'm
though.
just trying, I think that tonight's...
I just want to understand.
No, I think
I'm
tonight's
not trying to be
discussion is
disrespectful.
on a potential for a granting of a 4th special use permit banner. Is that correct?
No, it's for my 4th of July day on the
Correct.
lawn, which
So-
is really
so
just having tables on my property, not
Right.
the town's property.
So Jennifer, I'm just trying to, I just want to...
We've gone.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, because we've gone to a larger sign permit, we've gone to Memorial Day.
Because there's a lot of issues I feel I have with the town's laws that I'm
Okay.
being not granted, the same thing that everybody else is being granted, like music. You guys told me no, and cha-chas, you told yes. So I'm not
After a
understanding.
3-year period, we told them yes. We told them no
Well,
initially until they demonstrated that they were
But
going to be...
they changed their,
Until they demonstrated they were going to be
and have they done that?
Hold on.
Have they done that?
Jennifer, hold on. Tony, I wanna-
Cha-chas has?
Tony,
Not been there
as
more
far
than a
as
year.
tonight's
for
conversation,
3 years.
we're discussing the...
Cha-chas?
We get it.
It's Angus House.
Jen-
We're gonna have one conversation.
Hold on.
We're gonna have one conversation.
Okay. As far as tonight's conversation, we're looking at a potential 4th banner for the July 4th. Is that what the discussion is tonight?
No.
Okay. Okay,
It's not
then,
about the banner, it's about the day on the lawn.
right,
the
in
parade.
conjunction with, because, do we have to approve a special permit for the lawn use?
She's asking for a 4th permit, yes. We don't
Okay,
have
so
the
there
right to
would
do
be
it
a-
internally.
For the 4th of July.
For the 4th of July,
Okay,
okay.
can we
And there's
make a
permission
decision?
by the owner
I don't have a
to,
problem with the way that they've operated on the 4th of July.
And neither does the staff.
Okay.
It's just that we would have issued a permit for her if we could have done it internally, but we just...
It's not a big money day for me, guess what? It's
No.
not about that, because the road's closed, I'm not getting business, it's
Right.
about patriotism.
Yeah, we
And
have
what my
no problem
customers
internally
like
for
from
it.
us.
I have no problem.
All right, then let's vote on that proposal.
Right.
And not get into a bigger
I
discussion.
would agree.
Because I think it's important to stick to what's on the agenda that's been published.
I agree with that.
Or if anyone is interested in speaking in any way, shape, or form, or hearing the discussion, we need to stick to what the agenda item is.
I support the...
Improvements to the
I support
fire.
the opportunity to have the 4th of July, the banner and the tables out there during the parade. She's done it for a couple of years
Yep.
now. It's been done well.
I think it's a great idea. I support it too.
Thank you.
Right.
And now the second component was, she's coming to you and also asking for your permission to move forward on the idea of providing additional tables on the grass area, right? So you want to talk a little bit about the number of tables, the number of seats you're
That we
looking
do
for?
both.
We've gotten very busy. On the weekends, we do about 170 on Sunday, 100 people on Saturdays. Sometimes we have a line out the door. What I'd like to do, and what we really wanted to do, was put a little patio in the front. My landlord, whom I'm very close with, he was my boss for 6 years before I'm his tenant, Dr. Pignato. I wanted to put a patio, and he doesn't really want that in case he sells the building and someone wants to make it residential, and I totally understand and respect that. I asked him, would he mind if I put some tables out on the lawn in the summer months on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays if we get busy? He goes, no, I don't mind that at all. That's my,
Any idea how many tables you'd like to put out?
maybe 4 two-tops on each side, that's it. No more than 4 two-tops on each side of the walkway, no more than that. So 8 people, 8 people. That's all. I don't like people waiting, I don't like a line out the door. I know it's good for business.
Is there? There's no
No,
sloping or...
no.
Because she
There's
has
no
the tails
sloping at
out on
all.
4th of July.
I actually,
We do it on the 4th of July, all the way out, yeah.
Where would, in the evenings, would you,
I don't do anything on the evenings,
no,
I
I mean,
don't serve
would you
dinner.
keep the tables and
inside.
chairs? Oh, so they would be on the porch or inside?
Yes.
In the evenings? Okay.
Yes.
I
And no
like,
alcohol would ever be served in the front, no mimosas, nothing. People would understand, as I tell them on the 4th of July, if you want a beer, because we have our beer and wine license. If you want a beer or a glass of wine, you either have to be inside or on the patio, which is roped in.
Right.
I'm fine with that.
I'm not sure, I mean, it's fine that you're doing that. I'm not sure the board or the town is concerned about that. It's more of an issue between you and the state liquor authority as to what you can and can't.
And I'm just doing that because I know another business came on my lawn and took pictures thinking that I was serving alcohol, and you all know who that is because they
But
came
if you
to
have,
you.
if you have the appropriate permits,
Right.
it's okay
So,
to do it.
exactly, okay.
Yeah.
Then I take that back, maybe mimosas can be on the front. Mimosas for
I'm more
everyone.
concerned as to how you handle it with the state liquor authority. If they're happy with it,
I got you.
Yes.
And I will check with that.
I don't wanna
Once
jeopardize
I'm
that.
approved, I'll make sure I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to do.
right.
As far as the tables, not if I can put something in, as far as the tables, as she was thinking about the slope, I would level it off with some slate stuff that's put down for a little bit, just to...
If there's any.
I'm looking, I'm not even sure you need to do it.
I don't think.
Either way,
I think the less
have it
impact,
wobbling
the less impact of
that's
the
the only
area.
reason, I don't want anybody sitting in a chair and going, and sinking the chair
Right.
feet into the legs into the ground, so I would have
That
to...
happens to me a lot.
I think it's, yeah.
The tables inside all wobble too, so.
I don't have a problem with the,
It's only summer months
The outdoor-
also,
Right.
so it's not like we're doing it throughout the
And
year.
I would only ask for it Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays, because the other days, we really can accommodate everybody indoors or on the porch or patio. So I'm really only Friday, Saturday, and
Yeah, in the front,
Sundays.
you wouldn't have music or,
No, well,
in the front.
not until I get
No,
approved for
there is no
that.
music in the front.
Yeah, in the front is what.
There's no music at all, because we were,
Until you apply for it.
right, again.
Yeah, I support it. I think it's a great idea. If you think that you can fill the seats, that's great. Brings
Thank you.
people into the four corners, and I think it promotes a sense of community. So
Thank you.
I support it.
I agree.
All right, we good?
Yeah.
We're good? Now, the board did approve outdoor dining at this
I know.
location previously, so it's, I
In the
think.
rear.
Well, no, actually, you did it on the porch.
Oh,
And I think because you do have a resolution identifying that, I think you're covered in terms of having to deal with it in terms of a hearing or anything like that. But we'll do a letter verifying the board's issuance of the permit and memorializing that. Okay?
and if I need to barricade it, I will, whatever, makes you guys happy.
No, I think the less intrusive it is on the site, the better off you are. So I leave it.
I have confidence you'll know what works and what doesn't work.
I think you may want to, just to protect yourself, you may want to move those tables a little closer to the building.
Well, that's what I
At the end
do
of the
want
night.
them there,
Yeah, you don't
yeah.
want them sitting out in
No,
the walkway.
no.
Thank you.
We really
Right.
do try to do everything you guys are telling
You do,
us. We just
yeah.
want to understand,
Absolutely.
you know.
We've been in compliance at all times except for when we've gone over the banner issue a little bit, but we're okay. Okay. All right.
Great, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You want to continue the reins there, Mr.
I'll let you
Quinn?
take control. Do you want the big chair down here?
Nope, this is
Okay.
perfect right here. Thank you for pinch hitting for me. We'll next move on to Mark Landon, discussion of the vape shop at 1832 Penfield Road.
Mark?
There, Mark.
Mark is not here now?
Okay, so if Mark is not here, then we'll move on to Mark Brown, a discussion of construction of a press box at the Finney School on 5 Mile Line Road. So welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everybody have all the stuff that's
I'm John Sharaba with Land Tech. We're the project engineer on this, and can answer any questions that Mark can't, so.
Just probably all of them.
Before we get started, I want you to know that we did send out, I think, 48 postcards, if I'm not mistaken, to make sure the neighbors around the area were aware of the project. I did also receive a quick telephone call this afternoon from Lori Bialik, who lives at 56 Devonshire. She indicated she's supportive of it. She would like to get just a little more information on location. I told her I would take care of that for tomorrow morning. But other than that, I've not received any calls or comments from anybody else. So why don't you go through and just talk a little bit about what you're proposing to do and your timeframes?
Sure. In essence, and you all have the drawings from Labella. Labella obviously is
Very
our
nice.
architectural firm. The Nichols Group is the GC on the project, proposed GC on the project. Essentially, it is what you see. The Charles Finney School has very limited space, limited green space. We have varsity football, girls soccer, boys soccer. They all have to share that same field. Up until this point in time, for the last 20 years, we've had no press box of any kind, a very small, outdated, and never working scoreboard, concessions maybe once a season on homecoming, no sound system, no national anthem, except for maybe homecoming, and we're trying to improve that for a lot of reasons, for the student experience, number one. So we are proposing to construct a relatively modest press box and concession stand, two-story structure, roughly 22 by 16, 26 feet high. There is a viewing platform on the top, a roof platform for videotaping, for coaches to videotape games and so forth. There will be concessions as well as storage underneath. We're proposing bleachers on either side for roughly 400 maximum capacity. A lot of the student body likes to use the hill that leads up, the north hill that leads up to Penfield schools, and we imagine they'll continue to do that. So we're not constructing a large stadium. There are no lights other than safety lights, security lights, that sort of thing. There will be a sound system, but a very modest sound system that's merely adequate to do what we need to do and nothing more. It's relatively small in scope, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
So would it be accurate for me to say that the same activities, sports activities that are currently being played on the fields just continue to be played on a more updated, new field with, the bleachers, some concessions and, those type of amenities to the athletic facility?
I think that's a fair statement. As of right now, and really it's a phase one, if you will, it's what you see here, it's the structure.
Right.
The field, nothing changes in that regard. Frankly, our north end zone, half of it starts going up the hill. And it actually results in a 7-foot drop from back of end zone to back of end zone. And you don't appreciate it when you're playing, thankfully, but it's really there. So it is our hope to be able to deal with that at some point down the road. But right now, it's merely building the structure and putting in bleachers. Right now, we have 2 technically portable sets of bleachers. They're only 4 rows high, and it's simply inadequate.
Can I ask you what your time frame is for modifying the field to bring it more into compliance in terms of grade?
Well, that depends. There was a time where we wanted to do this now and have it all ready for the fall season, and frankly, both in terms of time and money, I just don't think that's going to happen. So we are actually looking for field improvements for the following year, maybe in the spring, maybe something we can do in October after the fall sports season. But the press box and that sort of thing, that's obviously what we want to get started right away. Finney finishes school before the public schools. They're done around June 9th. Ideally, we'd like to be starting shortly thereafter so that we can be up and running for the fall sports season.
Right.
What's the lighting like proposed?
The lighting, and a little bit hard to tell from the drawings. As I say, it's mostly security lighting. It's up lighting for like the roof deck, again, from a safety standpoint. There's some lighting near the
Typical
concession.
shoebox downlights that you see on most
Exactly.
site plans the planning board deals with. but
And we don't
small
have, sorry to interrupt, we don't anticipate night games. I've been associated with the school for 6 years. One time in that 6-year period did we rent those portable generator lights for our homecoming game. It was a disaster in my opinion, so I don't see us doing that again. So point being that without night games, there's not really a reason to have a lot of light around the building other than security.
And how many times a week would the field be utilized for games, organized games?
The field is used quite frequently because it's our only green space, and the current baseball and softball field are really using that same space. They don't even have a proper dirt infield, it's all grass. The gym classes use that, the recess uses that, and that's why it's had so much wear and tear. The football season is relatively short, as probably most of you appreciate. Last year, we only had one home football game, and I will tell you that's in large part because nobody wants to play us at home because the condition of our field is so poor, and the condition of the fan experience is so poor. We're trying to improve that. That being said, we actually do have, I believe it's 5 home games for football this year. Boys and girls soccer, obviously they play more frequently. I can't tell you the exact number of the games, but it's certainly going to be more than 5.
Okay. For the board's information, ironically, we were going through the seeker process, which we have to do, as you know. And immediately adjacent to this property is the Baptist Church at 1862 Penfield Road. The Baptist Church received state designation several years ago as an historic site, and because of that, this pushes this application into a type 1 action under seeker. That's not a real big deal because it's an uncoordinated review process because no other agency is dealing with a permit issuance process other than the town board. So it's not like we have to go out and hype the DEC and all these other agencies. We do not have to do that. And you're not doing any of the utilities where you're bringing a water service or water main in or anything like that. So the town board is going to be the lead agency in this process. Secondly, we are required to identify to the world that it is a type 1 action, that there will be a negative declaration, I'm assuming, being issued to this issue because it's not impacting anybody by any I do have to do findings to that respect. The other issue for the board is that we did send this on to the Monroe County Planning Department several weeks ago. By law, they have 32 days to make a decision as to what they're going to recommend to the town. We still have not received that back. I am anticipating that their 32-day period is going to expire within the next few days or so. So my recommendation to the board is whatever decision you make, obviously you can let them know what it is tonight, but we would have to do a more formal resolution, which I would prepare for you at a following town board meeting. By that point in time, you'll have the information from the county. I don't anticipate you're going to get anything very substantial other than the fact that it's a local determination issue. But by the same token, you have to have it before you make the decision. And we have to address the seeker issue in terms of findings, and I want to make sure you're comfortable with those findings being the lead agency before we pass on it. Okay?
I'm curious about one thing, and John, perhaps you can shed some light on this. When we submitted the package originally to go on to the county, I believe the focus at that time was primarily on the site work, the larger scope of site work, the field itself. Yeah. Now that that's not really on the table, and that we're really just talking about the very limited site work that has to fit under a relatively small structure, do we still need to deal with the county in that regard?
No, because they've got the application, and I think that's probably part of the original application. I sent everything on that you sent in initially to the planning board to them, so they're seeing that. As it relates to seeker, I'm also kind of supportive of the idea of the board reviewing the grading. You're basically asking for a grading permit more than anything else because you're just doing additional grading to a field that's already in existence.
Correct.
The issue is that I don't want to create an issue of segmentation under seeker because the DEC at some point in time in the reasonable future will be reviewing this plan, and if it's already been reviewed by the town board, the town board could approve this as a two-phased approach, allow you to build your press box now, and then let you go off to the DEC and deal with the SWIP and all that other business at the time that you think is appropriate. But I'd like to incorporate the findings all into one document so that it's there for the record, and then you move on forward with the DEC and do whatever it is you have to do at your convenience.
Yeah, I understand your determined segmentation, and, this would be stabilized, up and stabilized prior to any construction of the field, so one of the things we talked about, so we, the two-phase project is...
Our recommendations and our permits allow for a 1-year period from the time that you get it to the time you start work. So I'm assuming within a year's period of time, you'll probably be moving forward to get that resolved on the site.
Well, once you start the site work, it would actually memorialize your approval
That's right.
anyway. So
That's
if you
right.
go ahead and construct the press box, that would memorialize your application, and therefore you could carry forward with the field construction at any
Yeah.
point.
So we would be dealing with staff on the administrative end of engineering.
It's basically a grading permit. We just want the board to make sure that it's comfortable with what you're proposing, and they are the lead agency, and they have to be the ones approving the process,
Yeah.
subject to Mark's and my review of it later on in terms of getting the technical aspects resolved.
Correct.
John, is there any utilities, I was going to ask, with the concession stand, water, sanitary sewer, it's just...
Let me take that one.
So-
Yeah, there's no water. Obviously, there's electric. There is the pole that's already there that feeds our current scoreboard. That will feed the new concession stand press box, and then it'll run from there to the new scoreboard, which will actually be on the opposite side of the field, so that people on the hill can actually tell how much time is left in the game and see the score.
I would request, actually, that you submit a copy of what the scoreboard's going to look like.
I believe that's part of the submission tomorrow. I know LaBella's
Okay.
dropping off
Yeah, we
all
did talk
manner of
about it
things
last
tomorrow.
week. I just want the board to get a full understanding of what the scoreboard, some scoreboards these days become quite expensive and
Video
become
boards.
video
Yeah,
boards and everything else. so-
Not exactly finished style.
Yeah, I know. I understand that, but the board does have to review it, and I will get that to them as soon as I receive it. Another good reason just for you to hold off on the resolution until the next meeting.
I can tell you, it's going to look something like that.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a basic scoreboard. It's
Kind of
good.
traditional.
Just,
Yes.
you know what?
It's not the one in Texas,
No.
the Cowboys Stadium.
Mesquite.
All right.
I have a quick procedural question. Now that this, on the secret form, we identified this historic issue, is there something that you're going to need us to do with SHPO or anything like that? You're gonna-
We do it all.
Okay.
We take care of everything.
In terms of the building permits, I was hoping to have things submitted early enough where things were running kind of parallel, because again, time is so critical. Are we going to have any issues?
No, we recommended the other day that you get those plans in as quickly as possible to the building department.
Which is tomorrow,
I
apparently.
checked this morning for you. They are currently about 3 weeks behind. So if you get them in quickly, they understand you're coming, and they understand your time constraints.
Okay.
So they will move to get that resolved for you as quickly as they can.
Okay, thank
And I
you.
assume you're not doing any work until after school's out anyways, right?
That's correct. So I'm,
Which is the 9th of June.
right, so I'm focusing right on that week of the 13th. Monday, the 13th
Yeah.
is the soonest we would be doing anything. And even if it's just staking out things, if that can be done while we're waiting for the building permit.
Absolutely, yeah. Any prep work that you need other than the actual construction, yes. But we're hoping that by the time school's out, you'll be able to get your permit.
Great. Thank you.
Very good.
Other questions, board?
Nope. No.
Staff, other questions that we didn't put into the record that we need to put into the record?
No, I think we need that last submission for you to review, and we need to do some technical things in terms of secret and that type of thing, but we'll take care of all of that.
All right. And you're thinking about preparing a resolution for the meeting on June 1st?
And then we will have you sign off on the plans when they're
Okay.
finalized.
All right. Okay.
Do you need a
Any additional-
presentation on the first? Do you need us there to present? So it's just,
You can-
Welcome to attend.
Yeah,
Certainly
you're always
welcome to
welcome.
attend,
You're not gonna have to-
but it's,
Okay.
it'll be a resolution, formal resolution before the board.
great. We appreciate your time.
Anything else? All
Thanks
right.
for coming in.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, Mark Landon, by chance come in? Okay, don't see Mark Landon, and so then we'll move on. Nick Melly, 1385 Empire Boulevard.
take a look at some review of that, of the
We
property.
have Nick Melly 3.0.
Yeah,
Nick Riley 3.0.
He made it seem like this was going to be a lot more formal.
David,
I'm losing my tattoo.
You could if you wanted to.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Costello, if you would tee this up for the board.
Yes, Steve Bykirk and I have had numerous conversations lately. Steve is looking at various methods to try and maximize the use of his property at 1385 Empire Boulevard. And certainly his grandfather Nick has been in to see us as well. There are two components to the property, there are actually three components to the property. The first one is the one along Empire Boulevard, which is on LaSalle's Landing. And he's got that area graded out and looking to do something there, and it's been kind of problematic because the things they've been trying to do there are not consistent with our code. I actually brought a copy of the code and I give everybody a copy if they want it, but the second component is the property just down the hill from the road where Nick's operations have been over the years that are basically industrial in nature, more construction-oriented, industrial-oriented. And then there's a third component, which is further to the back of the property, which is zoned R120. And several years ago, many years ago, Mr. Melly did obtain a use variance to allow the use of mini storage warehousing in that R120 zone. I believe he's the only one I've ever met here that received a use variance, and it was well granted because there was no other method to get to that portion of the property, which was zoned residential, other than to go through the commercial/industrial component of the property. And certainly they demonstrated to the Zoning Board of Appeals that nobody would build a residential house of any value in that area, having to drive through a commercial industrial complex to get to it. So they did come in a couple of years ago and obtain site plan approval consistent with the requirements of the use variance. They're underway now. I think you've got 4 buildings up for mini storage warehousing, and now looking for a 5th coming in pretty soon.
We have the permit for the 5th, yes.
Permit. So, and I think it carries on. I think that they're up to 18 buildings or something of that nature when all said and done throughout the property. So that portion of the property is in compliance with the requirements of the use variance and site plan approval. The back portion of the property has been used by Birchcrest for several years now. I think Birchcrest has been on the property for 32 years, if I'm not mistaken. They kind of keep getting pushed back a little bit as the mini storage warehousing starts to move forward to the back of the property. They have got to come in and talk to the board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, a little bit about how they're moving back because in essence they are kind of creating an expansion to a pre-existing non-conforming use on the property, which is being created because of the mini storage warehousing activity that's being constructed on site. But I think you're here tonight to talk a little bit about the front of the property?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'll let you do that.
So basically, we just want to be able to use that piece of property. It was 1387, now it's all incorporated, as some aspect of our current business. We want to be able to either use it for storage, or we bought it as commercial originally and then it got changed. So we'd like to use it for storage ideally, or selling material, or anything actually pertaining to our current business. I mean, even in the area right across the street at the marina, they store boats. Right down the road at McMillan, they store boats. And they're both right on Empire Boulevard, which we'd put up a fence if we had to. I don't know if it's for like a visual standpoint, or what the main reasoning is as to why we couldn't get even if we had to get a use variance. But what we're really looking for is a way to be able to utilize that property for something that we actually deal with.
Even to store campers, that they just come and, stay for 3 months, they take it up 4 times a year, something like that too?
We talked about that as being an option in the R120 zone where the use variance occurred as possibly an option. I'm not sure that's the highest and best use of the property based on, what you can do there, what you're thinking about, but just for the board's sake and for yours as well, you and I have talked about this a little bit. Back in 1996, the town board created a new zoning district. Well, I jumped back a little bit. In 1981, the town board created a new zoning district going from just commercial, which encompassed everything, and certainly everything that was there was in compliance at the time, But after that period of time, they created a new business district called LaSalle's Landing. Actually, it was created as a new zoning district that allowed for certain types of commercial activities to take place. Everything that was down there was a pre-existing non-conforming use and can continue on as it always has, and certainly we've allowed that to occur over the years, and it has. But in 1996, a new zoning district was created after a public hearing process, and public input was received, called LaSalle's Landing. And the purpose of LaSalle's Landing was to create more of a destination point where people could go for shopping, they could go for hotel use, they could go to enjoy the water's edge, all sorts of new uses that were permitted, now saying that all industrial and heavy commercial uses such as construction companies could remain in place forever. They could not expand in nature, they've got to stay in the level that they're at, but the new uses would now come in to create more of a tourist destination type site than what we'd experienced in the past. And that has happened, as you've seen. We've now got canoeing operations, kayaking operations, we've got restaurants down there that we didn't have before, we've got the apartment complexes down there now. So all that started to come to fruition. The issue at hand now is you've got a piece of property. I know it's constrained in terms of size. I have been working with your neighbors to try and work out an arrangement to work with you as partners to come up with an answer to try and make it more profitable for you to use it under compliance with code. The problem is now we've gotten rid of a lot of pre-existing non-conforming uses. There are only a few left. And again, they can stay for as long as they want, but there are better and higher uses now for those properties than the pre-existing non-conformings. So the board's kind of constrained now because they've identified certain types of permitted uses, certain types of conditionally permitted uses, to go back and now and allow storage of vehicles or U-Haul rental services, that type of thing, is totally contrary to what we're trying to accomplish. It kind of now goes back to where we were in 1978 instead of 1996 when we changed everything over. So that's been the problem we're wrestling with, and I know that's the problem you're wrestling with. The situation we have now is we're trying to work to try and find uses that are now compatible with the zoning district. And that's why I want to work with you to do that with the neighbors. I have contacted the neighbors. The neighbor immediately adjacent to you is interested in working with you on some type of a venture. She's not quite sure what that is yet.
Develop property?
Yes. And I'm trying to set up a meeting with you and her at some point in time here in the near future to come to some understanding as to what could and could not take place in that property.
Well, she would obviously want to, I mean, she can't get a curb cut anyway, so
Right.
her property's worthless without one or the other.
And I think you're both in a situation where you kind of need each other, and she understands that. To go back to what you're doing in terms of U-Haul rentals and those kind of things, that comes into play down in the lower area where it's industrial. That's something you may have to go to the planning board or the zoning board for in terms of placement of those units down there as it relates to the old area that is being currently used as industrial and commercial. And that's something, it's not a horrible thing because it's not very visible from the public's eye, and it certainly is still within the confines of that old industrial type setting there. But to go out on Empire Boulevard, you're going to have to come in with uses that are compatible with the zoning district to comply with the code.
So just to be clear, that portion of the property, in the town's opinion, is not a non-conforming use that's...
No, in essence, up until last year, it was just a overgrown property that's never been used for anything. I'm sure it was filled at one time back in the 30s or 40s or something of that nature, but it's never been utilized for any use.
Well, we had the firewood there.
Well, even that was not compliant, but I did allow that to occur until such time as he was able to sell that and get it off, and he did that for us, and then left the site. So in terms of the actual use of the property, pre-existing non-conforming, it's never been that. It's never been used for anything. As a matter of fact, as I say, it was an overgrown piece of property up until a couple of years ago. Your grandfather came in and asked to have it cleaned up so that he could get a better view from the street. In essence, he went in and he basically installed stone on a property without a permit to create a parking lot. So in essence, there's a violation there right now because it's never been approved for any of that use. And then he went in subsequently and put in a U-Haul rental service without any approvals as well. So it's a situation where the property is valuable. I mean, he could not come in and ask for a use variance for that property because he's never demonstrated to anybody that he could not get a reasonable return for the property if it's not being used for its permitted use. So he's got to demonstrate that before anything happens. I suspect that there are people out there that would be more than happy to either purchase the property or lease it for some kind of a commercial activity that's compliant with code. we've never gotten to that point, because he's never exercised that ability.
Now with the, because the right-of-ways through there go back quite a ways too.
They do, you're right, and I know.
So it's really a very small.
It is, and I
lot.
say, with the ability to work with the neighbor or the other two neighbors, there is an opportunity to do something of some value on the site, but he's never explored that to the point where he could demonstrate to us that it would not work. And he's got to do that as a condition of coming in for some type of use variance.
He did speak to Mamano. And, yep. And he said he had no interest in actually selling or partnering with
I talked to your
anything.
grandfather the other day. He said he did talk to Mike. Mike indicated at this point, at one point in time, he was interested in doing something with him. Right now, he's not in a mode to be able to do that financially. He's working on some other things that are causing him to use his capital in other locations, but that does not mean that at some point in time it couldn't happen. And I think that if you've got the right partnership with Mike, Elizabeth, and your grandfather, there might be an opportunity to do something of some value on the site. Because you're right, all three of those properties have to have one point of access, and it's to their advantage to do that, and to work together to come up with an answer for that.
We tried numerous times to deal with her before, and she never...
Well, I've talked to her just recently, and I told Nick that she is more than willing to sit down with you, and I told her I would be a mediator if you wanted me to be there, just so that I could let you know what the code provides for, and, what the town would, consider and what they wouldn't consider. So I'm more than willing to do that. Nick indicated that he'd be willing to sit down with her. She's willing to do that. I've just got to get past the holiday period here and get everybody back together again.
Is that an extra copy of the criteria?
Yep. And Steve's been good. He's come in to see me several times. We talk on a regular basis. And he's aware of, he's been given that material, and I'm sure he's reviewed it all. But this has been going on since 1996 now, so it's not a new concept. And we just got to get to where the code is in compliance, that's all.
Board questions? Any additional questions you might have? Any additional information from staff or the applicant on this particular piece of property?
No. Jim was very clear.
Any comments or any further comments, from your end, questions or comments at this point?
I guess if you could send me, is her name Elizabeth? Mm-hmm. Her information.
Actually, Nick has it, and I think Linda has it.
I emailed the
And I
phone
would be
number,
happy
so.
to, after the holidays, sit down with both of you and come up with a date that's good for both of you to meet, and sit down and figure out what could be done there. I want you to focus on, as you're reading that, the purpose under the first page as to what we're trying to accomplish. There's 2 pages of purposes as to what we're trying to deal with there.
Yes, I understand.
And then, of course, the conditionally permitted and permitted uses.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Questions?
Any other questions at this?
No, that'd be it.
Continue to work with you,
Thank
and
you.
we'll get together right after the holiday, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, Steve.
One last call for Mark Landon. Okay, 3 strikes and you're out. I know Councilman Quinn, when he started the meeting, had indicated that item number 1, review of the informal discussion of the Pet Hotel, 125 Panorama Creek Drive, that would remain as a tabled item and will not be discussed by the board until June 8th. So anyone that's here for that. We'll move on to our second action item at 1789 Penfield Road, 600 plus square foot addition to Joey's Pasta House, and would ask Mr. Costello for any additional information that has come in since our public hearing 2 weeks ago.
Thank you,
Or last
Mr.
week.
Supervisor. Yes.
Last week. Seems like 2 weeks ago.
We did, we had our meeting last week. Since that time, I received a letter from Andrew addressing his concerns regarding the use of Mott's Lane as the only means of ingress egress. I sent that off to you, I hope you got it. If not, I have an extra copy here for you to quickly review.
Thank you, Mark.
Actually, can I see that?
You sure could.
Try to read it off.
Sure could. I know.
Thank you, Mark.
With that, I'll let the board ask any questions as necessary.
So I have one question about the actual curb cut. At one point, were the two parcels one parcel? I mean, I'm just, because it
Not
look-
since I've been here, they've always been 1789, 1793.
So
Penfield Road.
so there's the parcel that is sort of between the two properties, sort of is on the property line, right?
What? What's up with?
I'm sorry?
There's only a road between them.
Right, the curb cut, the road.
Right,
What did
yeah.
I say?
The curb cut right now is pretty much equidistant on the property line.
Yeah.
They're proposing to shift it over to
Correct, so
the majority
what
of
I'm
the other
saying
property.
is that the curb cut that sort of serves for the party house facility is sort of on both parcels.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because it seems,
Well, the parking lot is for both, too. It all
it
seems...
just seems very
It is shared
odd that
parking.
there's a curb cut spanning both parcels when you would think that each parcel would have a curb cut dedicated at some
Right.
point.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I have a
just-
feeling...
I was wondering, I guess the bottom line is this was not a created problem at some point by some previous permitted use or permits.
Yeah, they were
Well,
different
I think
businesses
these
at
properties at one time were single-family residences.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what happened was they probably had no other place to put a driveway, other than they probably had a shared driveway at one time to serve
Yeah.
both residences, and obviously it's now expanded into something much greater than that, but that's probably what happened. I mean, he's been here longer than I have, but all the years I've been here, it's always been that situation, so.
So,
And I think you've got a situation, you know, that the ingress egress at that point covers both properties. And I think even with the proposed adjustment, it still covers, you know, a piece of both properties. So both properties owned by the same owner.
right.
But I think as Jim had indicated, you know, as they were put in years ago, I think over time, you know, they may have been widened or paved and what have you. But I think what's being proposed, what I heard at the public hearing, is that, you know, there's going to be a shift to the east for that, but it'll still span both properties.
See, and that's where I'm wrestling with this, because, as I've said before this board many occasions, I'm not in favor of adding any additional curb cuts. And when there's an opportunity to relocate or remove a curb cut, I'm a proponent of that. And we've had this conversation with the different proposals at 250 and 441. So, Jim, I just want to ask, because LUAMP is sort of defined to, I believe, the 250, 441 corridor, but how is what we're trying to accomplish there really any different than what kind of traffic flow or scenarios we're trying to create in the Four Corners when it comes to ingress and egress? Because with the development now happening across from Wegmans, with the roads going to be connected behind, the idea is to remove the curb access points on 441.
Right.
So I'm just trying to understand from sort of like the LUAM perspective why we wouldn't want to accomplish the same thing at the Four Corners.
I've kind of read through Andrew's comments, and I think the two things that jump out at me, and this is from observation purposes only, is at this point in time, you've got an in and an out. It's not like you have two ins coming in or two outs going out. You have an in and out. The big issue for me is, and I use it a lot because it's just easier, but if you're coming down to Mott's Lane and you're going to make that turn onto Penfield Road, you only have the option of coming out and making the right. You can't go left. So as a result, all you're doing is coming back out and going in front of the property again to head east, especially if you want to go west. The other part of that is, I don't know if anybody's been at 5 Mile Line Road anytime between 3:30 and 6:30 lately, but if you're going out on the 5 Mile Line Road off of Mott's Lane at that point in time, the traffic is backed up from the intersection almost down to Harmon Road. And it gets a little tight to get in and out of there safely, especially if cars are coming from the south. If you're really concerned about this, and I know at some point in time, I don't know when that's going to be, but I expect at some point in time, you probably are going to tear both buildings down and build something there of a greater nature than what you've got now. You'll probably re-subdivide the properties into one. If you were more comfortable about the idea of requiring that as a condition of approval at some point in time, to make sure that there's less curb cuts on 441 than there are now. I get a little nervous at this point in time because it's probably less impact to the intersection. If you have that there to get out, then it would be to send everybody back down to Mott's Lane to get to the
Yeah.
intersection.
No, I agree with you totally. That-
If you're heading east.
The Mott's Lane's not wide enough to begin with, you know, to hold so much traffic, and then it is incredibly hard to get out of Mott's Lane.
Yeah, I think
onto
Mott's
5
Lane
Mile line.
serves the need. I think it's okay. It's
But
just
it's
that
not
when
the
you
end
finally
all
get to
right
that
now.
bottleneck point, it's not always. I
It's
mean,
not
during the
really.
day, it's okay, but
Yeah.
at peak periods, it gets a little tough to get people out. And unfortunately, these two properties serve peak period use. I
Right.
mean, it's a restaurant, and
Yes.
everybody goes there.
What
at peak
about
period.
any consideration from your perspective then on having it only as an exit? One egress, and any entry to the site would be from Mott's Lane? Whether you're coming eastbound on 441, you turn into Mott's Lane, or you're coming north or southbound on 5 Mile?
I think we'd really like to maintain the inn from Penfield Road. And just from my perspective of how I get to the property from where I come from. Going down Mott's Lane would be kind of strange for me to maneuver that. And I think it really affects how the business operates too. If you're all of a sudden shutting that off, that's going to affect how people interact with that business, to me. It wouldn't matter what business it is to me. If you're all of a sudden up, you can only go out here. I think what we're really trying to accomplish is the in and out aspect. One way in, one way out. Both driveways are narrow enough to allow that to happen, as far as they're not 24 feet wide, and we don't have room for that, especially on the west side of the building. We're right up against the line. And the reason this looks as big as it is current DOT standards. You know, that's the curb we end up with, that radius of, it looks like 30 feet.
You currently have what I would consider to be a residential driveway.
It's a driveway, yeah, there's very little wheel room.
There's no radius
at
to
all.
move that.
Yeah. And that's what, this driveway is only 16 feet wide. It's only 4 feet wider than what's there now, to give you an idea.
I can appreciate your
Yeah,
thoughts.
and like I
because-
said, why I'm wrestling with it is because this one is different in the sense that it's a separate parcel.
Right.
If it was the same parcel, I would be viewing this differently, but because, in
Yeah, if
theory,
you
it
had
could also
two-
be sold as a separate parcel, and they would need to have that access, so, but I like Jim's idea. If there is a point later on where these parcels are, joined or, subdivided or something, then maybe relooking at, the ingress egress.
And then we would have to.
That would make
because-
sense to make one nice in and out
Yes.
for both properties.
Right.
Would be one
Right.
property in the future, but that would make sense to have one to do it. And I understand, the 250, where the old Nap and Traw used to be, I understand what you're trying to do there. That makes some sense too, yes. And Sam's already done it once for you. He's closed off one of the curb cuts closer to 5 Mile line
Right.
on 441.
So I do agree. I think that if the property comes to a point where it's re-subdivided into one parcel, and there's an intent to redevelop it from something other where you're gonna have two separate and distinct uses on two
Right.
different properties, you certainly should be looking at consolidating curb cuts and
I think it's a good
minimizing the
compromise.
possible.
One at a time.
Yes.
Gotta go one at a time.
I'm fine.
Other than that, I don't have any concerns about any of the internal or external changes to the facility. I think it's great that, the business is booming and that there is the opportunity to sort of expand the interior of the restaurant. And I personally like the idea of having all four sides of the building look the same.
Right.
So I think any assistance there, so by doing this, that'll be accomplished. So, I wish you the best of luck there.
Yeah, there's probably 6 buildings there in one.
Yeah.
Not good.
Okay. Board, any other comments, questions for the applicant, staff? Anything additional we should be aware of that we haven't discussed either at the public hearing or tonight?
That was the big issue, I think, and if you're comfortable, I will start preparing a resolution for you
Okay.
to review.
I think I see that from the board to move forward with that for a resolution for June 1st.
Very good.
Great.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Any additional comments or input from either one of you?
No, we're
good, thanks.
satisfied. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll move on to now our action items under Law and Finance. Again, excuse me, under Public Works, I apologize. We had the proposed modification to the sidewalk policy. Mr. Valentine?
Thank you, sir.
And company.
As we discussed 2 weeks ago, PRC had kind of put forth a proposal as we've been looking at all of our fee structures, just making sure we're staying current with the times and current with the current cost of development. We had shared, and I have copies again if the board wants to look at numbers again, but originally, or currently, our sidewalk policy costs is a $500 waiver fee. So we're not looking at actually the policy, and we've gotten some comments on that, and I passed those on to the board, talking about the overall sidewalk policy. We're focusing on just what the waiver fee portion of it is. Currently, it's $500. In looking at that, it appears to staff that that's kind of a dated cost. It's if you're installing sidewalks currently at county bid prices, it's $36 and change a lineal foot. So for average 100-foot wide lot, it's $3,600. A $500 waiver fee is not kind of keeping up with that. So PRC was looking at, and we have a couple of applications that have come up recently as the board's been weighing whether to give a waiver or not. If we do get a waiver, that money goes back into the sidewalk budget. That goes towards repairs, connections of existing sections. So PRC had presented basically a proposal at the last to do something, look at it, kind of break it down through a formula, trying to have it be compare apples to apples of different properties. Our current policy calls for all external frontages plus all internal frontages of publicly dedicated roads to have sidewalks along them. The formula goes through that, shows both exterior and interior. Excuse me, I have copies here if it helps to follow along on those. So you plug into the formula the number of lots, how much exterior frontage, how much interior frontage you have, whether it's residential, commercial, and then also plug in what the current county bid price is. It's something the county bids out every year, so that would kind of move that forward and kind of keep us moving ahead in time a little bit. Run that through the formula and basically spit out what 50%, or what, first of all, what is full compliance, what's the cost of full compliance. If this board feels that sidewalks are fully needed, obviously the sidewalk policy is there. Sidewalks will be installed on all frontages and done as such. If the board feels that either it's in the location of town that sidewalks aren't needed, or there's two main frontages and a partial waiver may be necessary, this just gives a formula on how to break it down and compare it to that. So we've looked, and PRC just put forth the number of what's 50% of the construction cost. If it's half the cost of that, is that a fair waiver rate? And then we just break it down as a per lot basis. So trying not to, if it's a developer putting in 20 lots and he has such a cost divided by the 20 lots, for residential, if that's less than $5,000, then that's in PRC is a fair number. If it's your single family residence, and it's $24,000 to put in sidewalks, is $5,000 more of a fair number. Again, PRC kind of just put those out there as a straw man, for this board's discussion. Obviously, we'd have to have a public hearing on it to, move forward with a policy change on that. But didn't know if the board had any further questions, thoughts, concerns, or wanted to look at any different numbers or discussion on this.
So 2 weeks ago, Mark initially reviewed. We asked for a couple of weeks to have some soak time associated with this. I think one of the indicators that Mark had at 2 weeks ago for another data point is that the town of Greece uses an 80% formula. And I think as the board, as the PRC committee took a look at it, I think as they were doing some puts and takes, had come up with this recommendation. And again, this was just a recommendation back to this board with the ultimate decision, with us. So I guess based on that and the soak time of 2 weeks, any additional thoughts, ideas, comments from Mark and staff?
The only thing that I think it was Parenton. Did Parenton, they only require them on main lines, is that?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm not sure if I asked this last time, but do they define, I think we could all probably figure out what a main line is, but I'm just curious to know if the town actually has a definition of what a main line is,
I think they
because...
detail out what their, major roads are, and through our sidewalk policy, we have, what arterial roads are, we have a list
Minor, major arterials.
in our
Right.
policy as well as what those are. Previous to this, this board or past boards have had it that, we want sidewalks internally as well, so that's been a little bit...
So in any conversations that PRC had over this topic, was any discussion sort of, you look at the map and basically anything east of 250 is, whether they're main lines, there's no sidewalks, and there's really no plan or
And
intent
that's-
of sidewalks, but Jackson Road or Plank Road, there's definitely potential at some point that there be sidewalks there.
Yep.
So did that come up in conversation, Tom?
No, we kind of focused mostly on the costs of it.
Okay.
We didn't affect the policy. Currently the policy is across the town.
Right.
Most often, we bring in the stuff that's east of 250. There is no sidewalks in the area. Typically, we show you a map. It's 2 miles to the closest sidewalk. It doesn't make sense. Those are the ones that currently get
Right.
get
and
waivers from.
So what
them.
I'm trying to do is look at it from the perspective of if there's somebody who wants to build a home out in East Penfield, way out in East Penfield, they're, in essence, they could be subjected to a $12,000 sidewalk waiver where there's no intent whatsoever to have a sidewalk out there. As
Yep.
opposed to someone who purchases a similar size frontage on Plank Road or Jackson Road or, Shoecraft or somewhere where there is intent at some point. And so while, yes, the policy has to be uniform across I'm just trying to find a way that a trunk line is defined as such, or a potential sidewalk trunk line is defined as such, as opposed to a residential home, or, if, I don't know, I'm just trying to find a way to sort of differentiate between where we want sidewalks as a town and where we have no intention of having sidewalks as a town, and not really, really placing that burden on the resident because they're living in a place where we have no intention of ever having a sidewalk. So I'm just trying to find a way to...
Something we can look at the policy. Currently the policy applies to the whole town.
Yeah, that's just my
something-
perspective. I don't know what anyone else...
Way we're also looking at
That seems fair.
that maximum per lot, whether 5,000 is the number, whether 1,000 is the number. We were trying to put that in there, let's try to have the caveat. So if it is one homeowner
Yeah,
that's
and-
buying a house on the corner of two, country roads, obviously the cost for, compliance with, full compliance could be tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Where we looked at having a maximum cap on that, but, that's something we can
So
definitely
the-
look at in the policy and.
The only other suggestion I would have is, in just looking at it, and you have two examples here, maybe there are many others in town, but I'm okay with, at some point, depending on how we maybe flush out my previous comments, but doing some form of a waiver with a single family or a single residential unit as opposed to a developer. So I would say I'm less inclined to grant a full compliance or a full waiver on the developers, as opposed to if there's 12, 15, 20 lots, as opposed to, the one individual who happens to be building a home. I'd be more favorable in granting some form of partial waiver on the single-family residential as opposed to a developer.
Okay.
So,
We can apply the policy for a partial waiver as well. We've done that with some recent developments of just putting it on the frontage and being a cul-de-sac street or short street, even for a development waiving internally. Currently, they would fall under the $500 per lot. They'd have to put it along their existing frontage, but, this could be modified or, utilized for that as well for development.
I would say just the trunk lines. I think that we've all been in agreement of having sidewalks on the one side of the internal. I don't have a problem with that.
And maybe that's also an update to the policy. That seems to be more the trend lately. Originally it was both sides of all internal roads. It seems, we've moved more towards all frontages and then one side internally. And maybe that's another point within our policy we should update and take a look at, and then they wouldn't have to come in and seek a waiver if that's the intent of the board.
I like
So
your
those are
idea.
my two...
I like your idea, though, about as you get further to the east, where we're not going to be putting sidewalks in, probably in our lifetime.
there's got to be roads out in East Parrington or East Webster where they're not building sidewalks.
No, you're right, they're
Okay,
not. And we haven't approved a sidewalk in East Penfield in ever, that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
My question to you is, if we were to take and box out certain areas on a map and identify for you areas that were not, or at least we all perceive not to have sidewalks in the near future, I mean, even just to make your lives a little easier, would you be amenable to us preparing something like that for you and just saying, look, we're not going to have sidewalks in this area, why are we bringing it to you every single
Well,
month?
Mark had
We're going to give it to it every time.
Mark had a good map 2 weeks ago that showed the red lines where current sidewalks are, and you can stand back 10 feet and just
Right.
get a sense of where it would make sense to put the remaining red lines and
Right.
where it would not make sense to put red lines, and I think that's a good starting point right there.
Okay.
So,
Is everybody comfortable with that?
And
kinda
then
new.
the only caveat would be that we still have to review the amount per lot from a waiver standpoint, because the current $500.
we have to move from that. I agree with that.
That we have to move from.
Yep.
And as we take a look at it, certainly trying to tie that, to something, because what happens is you lock those in and they stay locked in for a number of years. I mean, what the formula that Mark was trying to put together and PRC were trying to put together is that as the price of sidewalks increase, hence the bottom line, increased as well. So there needs to be maybe a formula there so that we stay somewhat current with pace of that as well.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd like a tiered approach in terms of areas that are not going to be, I mean, we might charge some minimum fee just
Right.
because they walk sidewalks in Penfield somewhere else, so they benefit
Right.
from it.
Right.
But then do
But never
something further.
discount East Penfield. because-
Pardon?
Don't ever discount East Penfield.
No, I'm not. I'm saying there should be some kind of a fee, just because they do benefit from sidewalks in the rest of the town.
Well, I was thinking about
It doesn't have to be
Penfield
the same one, though, as you're suggesting, though,
Well,
like in
that-
areas that are high
That may
intensity.
remain at the $500 rate for out there. They're paying something into,
Right.
into the general sidewalk fund that helps to connect other areas near schools,
Parks.
Right,
community
they
centers,
benefit from
parks.
sidewalks
so they-
somewhere.
They benefit from it, but we can put it as a scaled area with a map that's attached.
Okay.
Okay, well, I can work on the map piece and then,
We'll take that back. We'll keep this as a held item so that we can ultimately bring it back and bring it to a final closure.
Getting
Okay,
there.
thanks. Anything else on that? All right, the next item we have hold harmless agreement for a fence and a sewer easement for Pond Valley Circle. Mr. Valentine, the floor is yours.
Clear.
come on up to the table. I have made a couple of copies, I don't know if I brought several with them. Was sought out by Mr. Tanis here, please correct me if I'm...
Tanous.
Tanous, thank you. With a request for request for a fence within a...
Sidewalk waiver?
A sewer easement.
Exactly my point. See what I'm saying?
Sidewalk stuck on the brink. I emailed a copy of this off to the board. He had sent an email in with an extensive verbiage on why the request was there. He's provided a nice visual showing where the fence location is. I shared with him that he would need a hold harmless agreement to put a fence within a utility easement should we need to get into maintain the utility in that area. He's understanding of that, but obviously anytime that somebody wants to put a fence within inside an easement, that's something that needs to come before this board. So I'll let you, if you want to share
Yeah,
more or provide the board with more information, or at least answer questions the board has.
Well, I think what our plan is to have the lot kind of resurveyed on that side and put a few pins in and make sure that our fence doesn't cross over where that survey goes. And so another one of my goals here is to not have to maintain the yard on the other side of the fence. Right. Okay, so there's no interaction. Even I think I sent like this picture has some stakes going past where we have a temporary fence now. And so I'm not sure when I took this photo, but this spring it's been kind of unwieldy and the grass was like a foot high. And so I went out there Sunday afternoon to mow, and I was like getting videoed and taking pictures, and it's just not worth the effort. So if I can just have that nice perimeter lined off like she wants, and I'll maintain my property on our side, I think that's all we're looking to do. I think Mr. Andy sent me some information on on,
Heights of fence.
the height, and so,
Closer to the-
so I did do
roadway.
set different colors. So the green is the 6-foot high, and then the pink is a 3-foot high. Okay, the orange is actually takes it a little closer, so it goes beyond that 20-foot setback, I think. It actually goes to where she has these stakes. So it would stop, this one is the one closest to the road, so it would still stop short of where she has that, even with this additional 14 foot of orange. And that would still put a setback from the road, so there would be no interference with any plowing or anything of that nature.
Sure, that we gotta make sure there's enough room for snow storage in the wintertime, that they're not plowing into the fence at the end of the...
And then as far as the distance off the road where the 3-foot buffer or the 3-foot requirement is for front yards, Mark, Jim, how is
We
that?
just need to be back of the right-of-way, so you can go from the right-of-way line back, and we can work with him on that, establishing what the right-of-way is, and it's a 60-foot right-of-way, so we can establish that with him. It's outside that right-of-way, you can have a 3-foot fence, you just can't have a 6-foot fence in your front yard.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So at what
Has to
point
be
does it
stepped
become a
back.
front yard to a side yard to a backyard? Where does the 3-foot then be allowed to become a 4-foot to a 6-foot?
You could actually go from the right-of-way line
Right,
back a period of 20 feet
okay,
and be at 4 feet, and then drop up to 6 feet after that point.
okay, that was my question.
That's what he shows in
All
the-
right,
the
so it
pink
looks as
area
if
there.
this is
He's
compliant.
actually more in compliance, he's a foot
So,
shorter than he's entitled to be.
Besides the fence and the height of the fence, any concerns about it being where it's located? As far as
No,
the
and
easement?
I'd be glad to go out there and look at them, just to make sure we're not, drilling into the pipe or,
Right.
have any impact on the pipe that's there itself. Other than that, typically, we can flush it from either side if we need to get in either way to maintain the line. And obviously, sign in the hold harmless agreement if the board agrees. They're in the understanding if we had to dig, or take the fence, remove the fence out for whatever reason to dig the line up.
It's our cost.
It's at their cost to replace the fence.
Is the easement on the other side of the proposed fence as well?
I wasn't able to confirm that
Yeah, I
yet.
believe it splits on
It
both
splits,
sides.
yeah, because it's only 10 feet on
Yeah,
that
it'll be a
property.
20-foot easement, so it's 10 feet on the neighboring property as well.
I think that we get these from time to time, and as long as the, resident homeowner understands that, with the easement capabilities or the issues with the easement and the hold harmless agreement, I don't view this as really being any different than some of the ones that we've done in the past before.
I agree.
Thanks for the map. It helps out a lot. There's no doubt about it. So I appreciate the effort
Better than
you've
the
put into
hose,
it.
better than the hose.
My
and
daughter,
the stakes.
my daughter would love a fence that color, by the way.
And you're not doing the
stuck out,
fence,
wow.
in the whole front yard and stuff like this, just between the property lines. I certainly understand, wanting to maximize as much of your yard as possible. And again, these are situations that we run into in other residential properties where, the resident wants to try to get as much of their property as they can versus having to mow on the other side of the fence. And I think based on what I saw that was sent over to us, another position of this puts it right up next to the house if it was outside of that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think they're 11.7 off the property line.
Yeah.
So a 10-foot easement, you have basically
yeah, and the hold harmless
1.7
agreement
feet to squeeze by the corner.
covers any concerns that we have with potential access that we need to get if something should happen. We hope nothing ever does happen, but, so I would support this.
Thank you.
So you'll go through, will you still have other problems?
I hope not.
We're hoping that by doing this, it can help create more peace.
Yes.
I can't guarantee that she won't complain because she's already complained about our temporary fence
Everything
twice.
else, right.
And I know for a fact she's going to complain. So I guess the point, a question that I'd have is, would we be forced to tear it down if she complains enough?
No, but one thing you should take into consideration is if you're putting the fence right on the property line, for maintenance purposes, you're not going on her property to fix the other side of the fence. You may want to indent it maybe a foot or two.
Right.
To keep it on your property, if you have to get over there and do some type of maintenance to it.
The fence contractors were talking about that. If it's a wood fence, they would have to get on the other side to do repairs if it's
You will be
vinyl.
responsible for keeping it in good repair.
Give
so
yourself some room.
Give yourself a little bit of room.
Right.
It doesn't.
One track of the mower.
One track of the mower all the way down.
Down
If
and
you've got a
back.
wood fence, just know the pretty side it has to face
Face
out.
her, yeah, it's always
Right.
gonna face her, yeah.
I think we're gonna go with vinyl, just so that it's maintenance-free, and we don't have to worry
Yeah.
about staining the other side and accessing the other
You
side.
can actually take those out from
You
your
can
side
pop
if you
the
have
panel
to.
out.
Right.
Right.
36-inch, one bag of concrete per hole. There, I was trying to prepare for every question.
So I think it would be helpful that, it sounds like you're going to be doing a survey, so that you identify, the property line. I think Mark, before, that, they actually install the fence to go out. Obviously, we should stake out, because we don't want to drive any poles through our sanitary sewer, or storm sewer, sanitary sewer.
Yeah.
And so we make sure that we have that, but it may also, if any questions come up from the neighbor, we have the opportunity to address those.
Okay.
Because it sounds like
That's probably gonna happen.
is going to probably happen. Okay, board, good?
Yep.
Other questions? No. Staff, any other questions, concerns?
So I'll prepare a resolution for next week for the board. that,
Yes, sir.
Authorize you to sign it, and then, once that resolution passes, have you sign the whole harmless agreement, and then the supervisor would be authorized then to sign it as well.
Right, it's recorded.
And then that's recorded.
Beautiful. And then
Okay.
we'll just proceed from there.
Yep, just to give you kind of the
Let them just stay in
process
contact
going
with
forward.
Mark.
Okay.
And for that, the resolution will be in next Wednesday, the 1st. So, thank you.
And there's no need for the applicant to go to the board meeting, is there?
No.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, thank you.
You're certainly welcome to do that, but not necessary to do that. You can also watch it, on a cable channel if you have that, and give Mark a call in the morning.
Okay.
Which would be Thursday the 2nd.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for your help.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Well, we love the town of Penfield, we're not looking to move.
Great.
Good.
Very good. All right. We'll move on to item number 3, Sable Oaks roadway dedication. Mr. Valentine, it's been a while since we had some conversation about that. I think it was actually January 12th was when we spoke about that.
Yes, just to cue it back up a little bit, this was something that was brought before the board, or brought to us. Originally was looking at to get the road dedicated for Sable Oaks. We brought this back in January to the board. At that time, we did some cursory review of the site, looked at the widths of the road, looked at the width of the gutter. We had the DPW go out there and verify that they could get plow trucks up and down the road, access in and out. They didn't foresee any issues with that. But as we were looking through that, I know the board wanted some time to discuss the Ellison Heights application. I don't know if there's any further questions about it this evening. I know recently we've gotten comments, or actually contacted by the developer on the lower piece. It sounds like they've kind of reinvigorated that project. They're looking to get started. They've actually inquired about starting to post a letter of credit, and then doing a pre-construction meeting for the first 2 buildings. So that seems to be moving back into the construction phase for the lower portion of the development.
Are the roads within that development private or public, or dedicated?
Those would be private, but that would give them an access off of a dedicated road. If Sable Oaks, they would have 2 curb cuts off of dedicated road there, and then also Penfield Road, they'd have an access off of Penfield Road. This would also assist with some of the fire marshal's concerns about having a long access road in there that being private to the existing townhouse units that are up top. They do have an emergency access that comes off of Penfield Road.
Right.
But I know he's had some concerns about that.
And it wouldn't have been a problem if we were like Allen's Creek Valley, where everybody's one entity and it's controlled by one entity. He's got at least 2 entities now.
Well, the one portion has sold off. The townhouses now, the second portion is coming on with, there'll be 5 4-story buildings with a clubhouse. It's the next portion
And
of
there
it.
will be a lot of traffic flow on that currently private drive.
So you've verified that the road was built with a proper right-of-way, that radiuses are proper, and all of that. So the next step, if I recall from our conversations, was to do some test borings to verify.
And I believe the neighbors have kind of waited to get
Right.
the indication of this board before they put forth that
Absolutely, because
expense.
there's a cost, certainly a cost associated with that, and we respected that. We also heard back from counsel to town attorney on this, and no concerns from his end. So really, the next step will be verifying the base, the depth of the binder, top coat, and base. And if that meets our specifications, certainly then we would have the ability to take that over if the board so chose. And if it doesn't meet specifications, then we can identify where the shortcomings are, and then they'll have to decide what their next steps might be.
Did, I think it was the two gentlemen that came in maybe 2 months ago when we started talking about this.
Yep.
You know, has anything come up in recent conversation where they understand that if this gets dedicated back to the town, they lose that privacy aspect that they enjoy right now? And I would say this, I would say that, you know, if somebody goes up there with a motorcycle and wants to do some loops around, there's nothing they can do about that.
And I think they, and I will, obviously they're not here to speak to that, but I think they understand that.
Yeah.
I think they feel that they're kind of losing that already with this next phase of development that's coming in. It's going to be public, you know, by the connectivity of it, connecting onto the road. So I believe they, you know, they feel that with this new piece coming in, that the privacy is kind of gone on that piece anyway. So, you know, having the road dedicated, you know, is a benefit to them, and then also a benefit to this new development to have multiple points of access onto a dedicated road rather than off a private drive. And then whether there's between group agreements and, you know, who maintains the road and condition of it and everything else.
Well, I tend to agree with you, because I think we tried to make it very clear what the pros and cons were. And, you know, just anybody that's never been up there before, you know, hey, let's go take a look up there, can just drive around and look around, and they may not be used to that
Yep.
after living there for a while.
Definitely make sure that they're very clear of that. You know, we talk to them that obviously they would incur all costs. They're gonna have to do some surveying.
Right.
They're gonna have to dedicate the right-of-way. There'll be some takings on the property to, you know, to fit the right-of-way in. They're understanding that, you know, all those costs would be incurred by them to do that, file the, you know, the new plat map, you know, take all that stuff on. So I think they were just kind of waiting to see, you know, what the direction of this board was. You know, I'll obviously circle back with them, talk to them about doing the coring, verify the base and depth is there, reiterate, you know, your concerns and kind of what the next steps are if the coring's come back positive. You know, this board is, you know, seems to be leaning towards, you know, accepting the road, then, you know, what the next steps are for them to complete that process.
Okay.
Pretty good to move forward with that.
Sure.
So you close that loop back with them, Mark. I think it would be good to put that in writing back to them.
Yep.
Identifying what the next steps are for them to move forward, and then certainly once they've completed that legwork by way of test borings, surveys and things like that, then come back, we'll get it back on for a brief discussion at work session to finalize that.
Okay.
Okay? Very good, very good. All right, we'll move on to retaining wall repairs, cost revision. I'm going to ask the board if we can hold this for 2 weeks. Some new information came to light that I think Rick Gieselman was following up on this, and he just asked that we hold that, and I said rather than him coming in and sharing that, I would take that piece for him. So if we could hold that for the 8th, we'll put that back on. And I'll put it, so we'll move on to item number 5, which is review bids for street lighting repair. Jim Kreckman, I said to Jim to stay home, but essentially we went out for bids. We've used Livingston Light and Power. We've had them for the last couple of years. We went out to bid that, so this is for any of our street lights that we have, maintaining, repairing, replacing heads, things like that. So we put our specs out. We received three quotes that came in. LLP, who we currently use, came in at $19,900. Merch Electric came in at $15,388, and Kakamish came in at $33,924. Upon review of all of the various unit prices, and so that includes repair, rebuild, Cobra heads, Colonial Post, move and replace Cobra heads to update to digital, install reflective pole IDs, and then that's the repair category. Then you get into the repair pole knockdown as a result of work that we end up doing on some regular basis for those folks that may have had a little bit more than what they had anticipated that evening. And so it is a recommendation of Rick Gieselman and Jim Kreckman that we accept the bid of Merch Electric. And if the board is okay with that, they met all the specs, they were the lowest bidder, we would look to have a resolution on June 1.
Okay.
Okay? Great, thank you. We'll move on to mixed use, review and update, Mark Valentine and our friends from MRB, if they haven't... You guys are still here? All right, fantastic.
Turn the floor over to Mr. Nersinger to set the stage.
All right, so Mr. Nersinger, great to see you.
How you doing? Great to be here. Thank you.
I know, thank you.
On May 4th, we had our first public hearing for the mixed-use project with the board. We went through the project, where it stands, through the manual, through what's being proposed through this project, what the board's considering. At this point tonight, we'd like to continue the conversation, continue the project regarding the seeker process and outlining those steps that would be involved with the rezoning action in the 250 area of the 380 acres that's proposed. Before we get into that, the public comment period was still open at the end of that meeting. It's been 3 weeks and we've received 1, if not 2 comments from the public. And those are in our files for that, but it has been somewhat quiet following the public hearing. I wanted to put it out there for the board if you'd like to close that public comment period.
I think I'd indicated, Zach, that we'd hold it open for 2 weeks from that meeting, 2 weeks plus 2 days, kind of close it out at 5 p.m. on that following Friday. So I would say that that period is closed. Obviously, anyone can submit items, but as part of the public hearing, we'll consider that closed.
Okay, great, thank you. So moving on, I have some handouts with the latest documents from the board, from MRV that provided us regarding the seeker process and the draft scoping outline that would be involved with that. And there's a draft schedule as well with that. And I will then turn the floor over to Tom Fromberger and Sean Lowe from MRB to discuss that.
Good evening, guys.
Welcome. Good evening, and thank you for, we still expect you at your desk at 6:30.
We'll be there in case you want to call.
We'll just call, just in case. All right, very good.
Well, appreciate getting together. What Sean has put together, I'll let him walk through that, is kind of a draft outline of a scope, as well as a project schedule. And based on the outline of the different meetings that we have, we're projecting us out into around October 5th. With the scoping document, we want to get your clarification with that, if there are additional items that we want to add to it, or refine certain sections of it, we can do that as well.
So yeah, good evening, by the way. Based on the May 4th meeting, I kind of crafted this schedule based on all the statutory requirements through the seeker process. And as Tom mentioned, it's going to require approximately 6 public hearings, including the May 4th one, and it's going to be a lengthy process, but I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. So what I wanted the board to do is kind of take a look at this and see if it made sense. Right today we're at May 25th, and the next legislative board meeting would be June 15th, where we could really act on this and potentially declare the intent to become a lead agency and kind of begin the coordination process with the involved and interested agencies. And that kind of really will set the stage for the remaining schedule, if that's kind of what the board is comfortable with. So I know you're just getting this for the first time and there's a lot to digest, so
And there may be an opportunity to condense some of these things.
Yeah,
Different
and-
workshops if you want.
Exactly, and that's where I identified possible agenda items because we are restricted to, statutory requirements in regards to 30-day response periods and 20-day response periods, so if we wanted to, we could hold a special meeting in some of those possible agenda item areas.
I think some of the public hearings, or at least the scoping part of it, we can put online and handle it as it's a public hearing, but I think you can handle some of those electronically through electronic submission, as far as, once the board has a chance to go through the scoping document, when you're comfortable with the content that's in there, we can post it on the website and have it open for the public to make comments, meeting the requirements of the public hearing, through digital submission or submissions,
Right. And as you're aware, this is a type 1 action through seeker, and with a lot of cases like this, comprehensive plans, rezonings, rather than doing an environmental impact statement, you'll do a generic environmental impact statement, which is less specific. So this scoping document is really to provide as an executive summary what will go into the generic EIS. So, I made it pretty broad, and it covers a lot of aspects from zoning, land use, a lot of environmental. So, if you guys would like to take a look at it, digest it, and we could come back and let me know if there's areas that you have comments about, things that you would like to remove. We could do that.
One of the key items was the traffic study,
Yes.
and based on their discussions, I now have a more defined scope, and we're going to be sending that back out to get a price from our consultant. One of the consultants who did the YMCA won't be able to help out on this phase of it, but he's passed his information along to another group. So.
Okay.
So we've had some past traffic studies. We obviously were part of the GTC's 250 corridor study. We have that one, and then most recently the YMCA studied the corridor, or at least the lower portion of it, during their application for the traffic light to the state DOT. So we're not starting from ground zero. There's some studies already out there. There's some process that's already in place. They can pick up and move forward with that.
Got it. So the first potential trigger point is a public hearing on the 15th. And in order to hit that, we can't,
I don't think you need a public hearing on the 15th. I think we need to do a resolution authorizing the town board to determine that it's type 1 action or seeker.
Yeah, so is it more just declaring ourselves as lead agency?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're not even going to declare yourselves lead agency yet, because it's a type 1 action. It's going to go out, and we're going to request input from various other people that might want to be lead agent. Obviously, you probably end up being lead.
Well, yes.
But,
I guess
there's a procedural issue there.
That
You're right,
involved.
and we need to go through this for you too, because you're absolutely right. We can consolidate and we can do some
Many of the items that are noted as public hearings or work session items that this board is, it's a public forum item, it's not a...
They are trigger points, you're right, Tony. It's just a matter of what they are in terms of how we deal with them. A lot of it can be done electronically, and some points we will need your assistance to be present.
Okay.
So obviously, first was just to circle back with the board. If the board had any questions, concerns from the original public hearing, and then as we're looking to move forward, or would like to move forward, to kind of get the secret process started. So obviously a lot of information this evening, not expecting to take it all right now, but just wanted to kind of kick that part of it off, and then just kind of set the stage as we move into the next phase of it, is to have to go through the scoping part of it, go through the GEIS and the data collection that we'll have to do for the traffic study. And we've already studied the sanitary sewer. Mark DeFrancesco did that part of it before he left, so we've got some of that stuff and some of those studies already completed. The comprehensive plan called for mixed use, so some of those benchmarks are already in place for that.
Some of this we can do internally here. We don't have to burden them with everything. But again, the the lead agency has to be determined prior to the scoping outline being accepted by any lead agency, so we've got to get that portion established, and then we'll go on with the scoping outline.
So I guess that's first is whether this board, wants to, with the intent to be lead agent, we'll start processing that information, get that out there, get that step going, and then, once the timelines go, then the board can declare themselves lead agent and then get into the meat of it.
Okay. Do we have an extra copy? So I just want to make sure it gets to Horowitz. So
Yeah.
if we would take care of that.
And we have this electronically as well, so we can make sure we
Perfect.
can get in that.
If we can get to him a hard copy, we can send it to him electronic, but I prefer to get it a hard copy in his hand as well. He'll be in Friday, so I would like to, maybe take some time Friday morning to then have a follow-up dialogue with staff, myself, and Horowitz on this, so that we've got that.
And I'll also forward this electronically to the board as well, so the board has it electronically.
Thank you. Board, any questions at this point? Anything more that you need? So we'll start to have the dialogue with our friends from MRB, staff, and Mr. Horowitz, and we'll start to chunk off and move forward with this and hit the trigger points as we need to hit the trigger points as we go through.
I think too, when you go through this, it is a very broad document, so for a scoping document, you may want to refine some of these.
Tighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, that'll help.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's just designed that way, just to cover the bases and
Allow you different
get those
options.
juices flowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. So we'll do that. Okay. So we'll let's plan on meeting Friday morning if schedules permit. I know that you're going to be in Friday. Oh, okay. So maybe we can just grab a little time with Mr. Horowitz first thing Friday morning. All right. Very good. Anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
I think you're both good. Both are good, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Some stuff off.
Thank you for coming in, gentlemen. Thanks for the work on this and laying this schedule out. And now our goal is to, work towards keeping it as reasonably close as we can as we move forward. So,
Great.
all right. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Good evening.
Appreciate it, guys. Nice to meet you. Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. There is nothing more to come before the board, so the May 25th, 2016 meeting stands adjourned at 8:45 p.m.
Thank you.